conversation is probably the three key strategies that we're recommending to our attorney owners on how to give their law firms a head start in 2018. So as we think about this, these are really three great big strategic projects or three big strategic initiatives. So our recommendation is for you to start looking at how do you put these things in play now so you really have a great launch to your 2018. And at the end of the call, we'll end it with probably our most important recommendation for the webinar, which is something that we're going to recommend everybody on the call do and take advantage of. So that's really today's call, 3 deep dives into what I consider the 3 most important things to do now to give your law firm a head start in 2018. And hopefully for you, you'll take our advice on what my most important recommendation is. So let's go into number 1. And number 1 is really talking about how to plan strategically your calendar for 2018 to protect your strategic initiatives. So let me talk about what I mean by strategic initiative first. A strategic initiative in our world is any project that will help you grow your firm, such as gross revenues, become more profitable, or a project that will free you or your team up. So there might be a strategic delegation. It might be something that you help your team hand off. It's not typically going to be any form of case activity. So if you're a PI lawyer working a case up for settlement or trial, would not be considered a strategic initiative. Typically for me, any form of strategic initiative is going to be something where you're going to be working on your practice versus working in your practice, the classic E-Myth distinction of working on versus in. So strategic initiatives are really important to protect from the perspective that if you're looking to grow, you're typically not going to grow by doing legal technical work. You're really going to grow by working on the business side of your practice. That's where the initiatives will really have a big impact on your gross and net. One of the ways to think about this, and this is one of the ways that it's really challenging, for us as lawyers. I'm cropping up, or I guess approaching my 30th year of practice. And it's really tough for us as lawyers to appreciate that sometimes our business skills are what will drive the growth of our firm far more than anything else. And we get really hung up on our legal skills. And one of the ways that I always like to tease, especially estate planning and elder law lawyers, because I have so many friends in that practice area, is that your ability to draft a trust will not make any great difference to your gross revenue or to your net revenue. The strategic initiatives that you're going to do around growing your practice will make a difference between gross and net. If you can put that trust on the best font, with the best font on the best, paper you can find, and you can explain it 15 different ways to a client, but it really won't make a difference to a gross or net, or even drafting a pleading. If you're a litigator, drafting a pleading won't make a difference to your gross or net. And my experience is after about 10 years of practice, most lawyers are about as good as they're going to get. Everything after about 10 years of practice is really improving a nuance upon a nuance. Your clients really are not in a position to judge how good you are. They know the results that you're producing, but they really don't know how good you are. And really, it's very difficult for them to distinguish a good lawyer from a great lawyer. They can't tell the difference. You can, but they can't. And that's one of the interesting things about this, that when you start thinking about strategic initiatives in your practice, at the end of the day, the only way that your clients can judge you is they can judge the business experiences that you've created for them to experience. So I'm going to say that again. The only thing that your clients can really judge, or your prospects can really judge, is the business experiences that you've set up for them to experience. And for example, how your phone gets answered, how your email gets responded to, how your customer service is handled is something they can judge far better than your legal skills. So when you start talking about strategic initiatives, I want you to move away. I want you to just let go of saying, what I have to focus on is being a greater, better lawyer for 2018 to be a very impactful year for you, what you really need to focus on how to be a better business person, how to really think about how you think about your practice. That's one of the key things. So when I talk about strategic initiatives, I don't really care how much time you're going to invest in being a better practitioner from a legal technical perspective. I care greatly on how much time that you're going to invest on how to make changes in your practice that are sustainable, that will increase your gross, your net, and at the end of the day, make it a better place to work for you and your team. So what's the first one? What is the first one? Well, the first one is one that most lawyers completely, utterly forget, and quite frankly, in my experience, blow off, which is protect you and protect your family. So the most important key initiative that I recommend for planning out 2018 is look now and say, okay, how do I protect my time off and protect my health and wellness for 2018? How do I go ahead and pre-calendar my key vacations for 2018? What are the significant family events that I want to protect? What are the things that I want to build into my schedule for 2018 to protect my health and wellness? Where I usually start, and this is just me personally, and it takes a lot of work to do this, it's like apparently a state secret, is I usually have to get my kids' school calendar and try and get their 2018 calendar as best I can from their school, so I can start protecting time with them when they have time off. So I always try and match up my calendar to my kids' school calendar. So when they take breaks, I'm on breaks. Secondarily is making sure that the key vacations are budgeted. Now, key vacations for you really is something that you have to make a judgment call on. I personally love, if I can, to at least take a week off per quarter to rest, rejuvenate, really get recharged. But you have to think about, okay, what's important to me in your practice? What's important to you as far as taking time off? And a lot of lawyers really believe that the way to increasing revenue and increasing growth is to work harder. And this is usually the biggest mistake that I see a lot of lawyers make, especially young lawyers. They, if they're within their first 10 years of practice, they're still in this academic mindset. The only way you can get ahead is to work yourself into an early grave, which most seasoned practitioners will tell you is a terrible, terrible mistake. It may be something that you were taught as an associate, so the firm that you worked at could squeeze a lot of income out of you, or something that you might have learned at law school because they were putting you through that horrible grind that we call law school. But the truth is, to actually really improve your practice, you have to have time for your brain to heal and recover so you can think better about your practice. Honestly, I'd rather have you increase your prices by 10% and take 4 weeks off than I would to have you work those 4 weeks. I'd rather have you raise your prices up this year, whether it's hourly or fixed pricing model, it doesn't matter to me, but I'd rather have you raise your prices up and take more time off this year as a way of increasing your revenue, because I know the 4 weeks off that you take, you'll come back rested, rejuvenated, and your ability to produce more work and be more creative will actually jump tremendously because you're taking time off. And then health and wellness. If you're committed to taking a fitness regime to the next level, or a diet regime to the next level, or meditation or yoga or whatever it is that really works for you, then it needs to be pre-calendared to protect that. You're, quite frankly, the most important asset in the firm. So how do we make sure that you are protected so you feel rejuvenated, excited, and at the end of the day, healthy? Because you can't be a great practitioner if you're sick. You can't be a great practitioner if you don't feel well. You can't be a great practitioner if you're exhausted. People are paying you for your judgment. And if your judgment's impaired because you're exhausted, you're not as good as a lawyer as you can be. If you're rested, recuperated, you're probably playing at your peak game. That's when people really need your skills. They want you at your best. Think about it this way. If you were going to go in to have surgery, and let's say it's critical surgery, or your heart, your brain, or whatever part of your body you consider absolutely crucial, do you want to know that your surgeon has worked 80 hours a week for the past 52 weeks, and they're walking into the surgery exhausted and fatigued and resentful because they have no time to improve their skills, no time to think, no time to recover, no time to spend with their loved ones. And consequently, their ability to perform may be, I don't want to say impaired, but not as at peak. And that's really what we're playing for. You really are, your ability to move, lead, create relationships, and make great decisions for clients needs to be something that you think about, how can I play at my peak 4 to 5 days a week? And running yourself into the ground will not get yourself there. So the first initiative is to think about, how do I protect your time off? How do you protect your time off? How do you take it so you can think through about making time for you, time for those you love, and what you do with people that you love a priority in your calendar? And that becomes the first strategic initiative. How do you protect you, protect your time off, and protect time off with your loved ones? Number 2, plan your marketing calendar for the year. We get so hung up as attorneys in doing the work on our desk that we don't think strategically about our marketing. And we really don't think about it with a strategic perspective. We may think 30 days, 90 days out, but we don't look at the year as a learning tool. So if you really take a step back, and I would invite you to look at this year, 2017, I'd look back at 2016 and look for a couple things. Number 1, I'd look to see if you have a season to your practice. Is there a rhythm to your practice? Do you have a slow time during the year? Do you have a uptime during the year? What does that look like? For a lot of practitioners, the fourth quarter is usually their best quarter of the year. For a lot of practitioners, the third quarter is usually a terrible time of the year because summer impacts their cash flow. Well, if that's true, can we start to plan for it now? It's probably, I would say most lawyers, I'd say it's probably a common practice for most lawyers that they say, look, my goal is to do $1 million in revenue, is that they annualize that $1 million on a per month basis. So if they're trying to get in a monthly, if they're trying to get in a practice where they're achieving $1 million in revenue as a solo practitioner, they might be thinking, okay, all I have to do is do 80 grand a month, or roughly thereabouts, to get to my $1 million target. But the truth is, if you've got a rhythm or a season to your practice, you need to say, okay, I'm going to have a killer first quarter. I'll have a decent second quarter. Third quarter is going to be flat. Fourth quarter is going to be awesome. So if that's the case, we need to say, okay, first quarter, our goal is 250 maybe in gross revenues. Second quarter, maybe 250. We know we'll be flat in third quarter. So let's maybe doing 150. And then our fourth quarter, our goal is to bring in 350. So if we're looking at that and we're trying to see, average out our revenue from a annualized basis, it gives us the capability of thinking in quarters and think about how the seasonality of our practice may impact our cash flow, so that we can take a step back and not be surprised when summer's slow, and not be surprised when the fourth quarter is fantastic, and think, well, if I just can make every quarter like the fourth quarter, then I'll be eating like a king. But the truth is, it doesn't work like that. You have a seasonality to it. There might be a couple of reasons for the seasonality. If you're in the plaintiff's practice, it might be there's certain times of the year where companies will settle cases. There might be certain times of the year where they want to mediate cases. There might be certain times that you can get on the judge's trial calendar. There's certain times that you can't. So you have to take a step back and think, man, what is the seasonality to my practice, and how can I anticipate that from a cash flow perspective? How can I think about that for planning out the year from a financial perspective? When do I want to make my major purchases? Do I want to make them in the fourth quarter? Do I want to upgrade my computer system and some of my more capital intensive investments fourth quarter, and deduct that in this year's expenses? How much can I deduct in this year's expenses versus next year? So just take a step back and look at it and think about how does your revenue impact your planning for 2018. Now, when you think about that, then it gives you the ability to back in and go, okay, when should I have my peak marketing activities? Do I plan on doing my peak marketing activities first quarter, second quarter? Probably not during third quarter, because third quarter is really making hay. You know, first quarter and second quarter might be really great. Third quarter, you might be doing a ton of marketing, assuming that people are, you know, available and around. So I want you to really take a step back saying, well, if this is my rhythm from a cash flow perspective, what should I back into with a rhythm from a marketing perspective? So for example, if you are a lawyer that does workshops to generate leads, you know, what's your workshop schedule? And when I say workshops, I can mean anything from a retail workshop for your marketing to potential clients to wholesale workshops where you're doing continuing education to professionals. You know, what's that look like? What's your workshop schedule flow out for the year? And how can you go ahead and start planning that to protect it now? And then third, what are your marketing goals for 2018? You know, what are your initiatives around marketing? Do you have a goal about how many new cases? Can you predict that if you do certain types of marketing activities that you generate certain types of leads? Are you the type of practitioner that if you go out in the marketplace, meet a few people, talk to a few people that are good referral sources, that they'll, you know, you'll be top of their mind and they'll send you work? So I want you to take a really, you know, kind of a look at these three variables and planning out your year, saying, okay, first and foremost, I may have seasonality to my cash flow. And if I do have seasonality to my cash flow, how do I back into my marketing activities to either even it out or sustain growth throughout the year? And then if I'm going to get certain financial goals, what marketing activities do I have to plan for now to support those revenue goals? So when I'm looking at this as a strategic initiative, there's really three components. Planning it out now so you can anticipate your cash flow for 2018. 2, think through what marketing activities you can support those cash flow goals. And if that's the case, then that leads you into thinking about what are those marketing goals for you for 2018. Great. The third one for 2018 is planning out your projects. Now that may be kind of hard to do without knowing exactly what your projects are quarter to quarter. Now, attorneys that are in our practice growth program or the Dominate Your Market program know that they've got a rhythm to the year because of the quarterly workshops. And during those workshops, they identify their top 10 projects. So if you're looking at the year at a glance, you can say, well, I know that every quarter I will be creating projects. The problem that a lot of lawyers have is they create the projects and then try and jam the projects into an already full calendar. So I'm going to recommend that you block off project time now, and you can name what the projects may be later. So if you're looking at your 2018 calendar, you're going to say, okay, well, I know I'm going to be doing somewhere between 5 to 10 projects per quarter to support the initiatives I'm after. And instead of trying to jam in those projects after I've named them and created them, I'm going to block off time now to protect those yet to be named projects. So that gives you the capability of saying, okay, I know the projects will be there. I just need to have a placeholder on my calendar to work on those projects once I name them. Now, what I have on the screen for you to look at right now is an example of our time template worksheet. This is something that we do in the Practice Growth program, or if you're in the Rainmakers program or Dominate Your Market, you'll recognize this tool. But this is really an example of what a lawyer would consider their ideal week. So if I'm looking at a lawyer who's working at an ideal week, this might be an example of a great time template for them to plan out in advance. So if you look at this, I may have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday blocked off at 7 o'clock for exercise. So they're going to be up early and hitting the gym or doing whatever they need to do to physically take care of themselves. 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock will be a cash flow focus meeting. That's where they're going to work on their cash flow focuser. That's where they're going to work on some of the tools around the growth of their practice. Now, what we did with this one is we gave them a 9 to 9:30 calls and emails budget, so they have a block to respond to calls and emails. But from 9:30 to 11:30, we've blocked on their calendar to go ahead and protect that time for strategic growth projects. Now, we may not know what those projects are right now, but we're putting it on the calendar for 2018, the days that the lawyer's working, that from 9:30 to 11:30, that's where they're going to work on growth projects. Those are critical projects for the growth of the firm, so we have to protect the time. Then at noon, we have lunch with the top 10 referral source. We're just saying, okay, we're going to integrate marketing here. And then in the afternoon, the rest of the afternoon is production on casework or hearings or whatever they're going to do in the practice. Tuesday is all about working. They're going to be doing client meetings all day, going to lunch, hopefully with a new referral source, not taking an old friend to lunch, but someone who's they're trying to develop a new relationship with. Client meetings in the afternoon, and then 3:30 on some kind of marketing activity. It could be a coffee with a new referral source. It could be something. It could be working the phone, calling their referral sources. It could be following up on new leads. It could be whatever is important to this attorney. Now we have, for example, here also a lead generation workshop that afternoon. So a lot of lawyers will do workshops or speaking commitments to generate leads in their practices. So this is an example of a practice where this is an initiative for the lawyer to go ahead and utilize in their practice. And so they've got to block that off in advance. Now, Wednesday, same model. We have a team huddle meeting with the key assistant around 8:15, 8:30, calls and emails, and by 9 o'clock, we're going at it. So Wednesday is a huge production day. Once again, lunch with a referral source. Thursday, client meetings, marketing activity. And then in the afternoon, the following morning, that Friday, is strategic growth projects. Now, I love this particular one because I've got a lawyer here who's committed to almost a whole day of growth projects. This is a big thing. It's a big thing when I work with lawyers. Our company works with about 500 plus law firms right now. The growth of your practice will be directly correlated to the amount of time that you work on growth projects during the week. So if you go into the week and all you do is do client work, it's terrific. You generate cash flow and you move cases and you take care of clients. But after 52 weeks like that, you're going to sit back and go, wow, I worked myself to death this year. But I did not increase my gross revenue, nor did I increase my net revenue. Well, why is that? Because you took no action on growth projects or no action on initiatives. The only way that I've learned over the years of doing this, 20 plus years of coaching other lawyers, is that this time has to be budgeted in and protected. If it's not budgeted in and protected, then at the end of the year, you're going to say, well, this coaching stuff's not working for me. Well, it's because you're not working your plan. You're not protecting your plan. You're taking no strategic action whatsoever to protect the growth projects that you say are valuable. It's kind of the emotional equivalent of saying, my goal is to get really healthy and to exercise this year. And if you join a gym but never go to the gym, you can expect what kind of results? None. You'll have an outflow of cash. You'll have a lot of guilt because you joined a gym that you never really did anything with. But you took no real activity to make any form of behavior change to support the growth. Same thing with your law firm. You can't jam this stuff in afterwards. If you really want to have growth, I would say bare minimum is 2 to 4 hours a week on growth projects. So in the weeks that you're working, I would like to see 2 to 4 hours a week on growth projects that are probably non-revenue producing. So that means that if you're a billable hour shop, you're going to have to figure out, okay, how do I make up the revenue this week? Because 2 to 4 hours this week are really about strategic initiatives in my practice. Okay, so obviously this is a big topic for me, something I could spend a lot of time working on, but I'm just trying to hit you from a big perspective that if you're going to try and budget in growth this year, take your week at a glance, take your month at a glance, and say, okay, how can I go ahead and block that time off now for growth projects? So in the future, I will see the benefit of that investment. In my experience, you will. If you put time in on critical growth projects during the week and during the month, after 1 quarter, 2 quarters, you will start to see good progressive change coming out of those investments. So I couldn't encourage you enough to do this. So for me, those were probably one of the most important things as an initiative for 2018 is protecting your project time for strategic growth projects on your calendar in advance before it gets absorbed by casework, before it gets absorbed by client work, but before it gets absorbed by administrative stuff. Protect it, because if it's important to you, you've got to block it out now. Great. That was initiative 1. And we did a lot of work talking about initiative 1. Let's talk about number 2. Now, I think everyone that's on the call knows that our company is really committed to referral-based marketing. We love referral-based marketing. And it's important to understand that there's probably 10 to 12 reasons referral-based marketing works. Typically, your value per case is higher. Your sales cycle is typically lower, because once somebody's referred in, they're like, well, this person is really coming in with a high expectation of what you can do and how you can help them. And number 3 is that you typically feel great. So these are probably the top 3 reasons I like referral-based marketing. And it's interesting. It's really, really interesting, because right now in the marketplace, with the amazing things that you can do on the internet, some of the amazing things you can do with search engine optimization, content marketing, inbound, outbound marketing, some of the really, really amazing tools that are available for you for directed advertising through Facebook. Some of the firms that we're working with are doing some really interesting advertising over Facebook. Lawyers can get very, very distracted, and we're really, really easy marks for the next great internet idea. And there's companies that just make a fortune selling us sometimes snake oil and sometimes pretty effective tools to make us feel like we're taking the pressure off of ourselves to market. What's interesting is I just read a recent study that said typically when a prospect is looking for a new lawyer, the ratio is 2 to 1. That means for every 2 prospects looking for a lawyer, they're going to ask someone for a referral versus going online. So if you have 3 prospects looking for a lawyer, 1's going online, 2's asking for referrals. So still today, even with amazing things that are available via the internet, people, when they go looking for a lawyer, are looking for a referral first. And if they can't find the referral, then they'll go to the internet. Now, that doesn't mean that you should ignore the internet. My experience is that most of the time, lawyers, once they start doing any form of online advertising, is that they start to ignore the most valuable form of marketing, which is referral-based marketing. So referral-based marketing is so easy, it is so powerful, and it is so lucrative long-term that I think it's an incredible mistake to put all of your eggs in the internet basket. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't market on the internet. It just, when you do that, remember that for every person that you're getting there, there's 2 that you're missing that are out there asking other people for referrals. So one of the things I'd recommend for 2018 for you to do as an initiative is to look at kind of what I would consider a referral audit. And first question I would ask you, if you were, we had the opportunity to do this privately, is do your referral sources know how to refer work to your firm? Do they actually know how to do this? Now, this is an interesting question. A lot of lawyers are like, of course they do. Of course they do. And if you actually start to talk to a lawyer, so you'll hear some really interesting things. So I was picking on the PI lawyers a minute ago and litigators a minute ago. I'll pick on, I'll pick on the family. No, let's pick on the estate planning lawyers. So, an estate planning lawyer meets with a prospect, and the prospect comes in and says, oh, wow, I'm so excited to meet you. I'm so excited to meet you. My friend Larry, who I go to church with, says you're a really great guy and that you play golf with him and that you'll give me a great deal on my estate plan. Well, your good friend Larry just cut your legs out from under you. there's no way you can price this case accordingly. There's no way you can get out from under this case without making Larry look like an idiot. And Larry's trying to make himself look like a hero by cutting your legs out from under you from a price perspective. So for me, it's clear that Larry, in this example, doesn't know how to refer work to you. So for me, I would have to go back and say, Larry, I really appreciate the leads. I really appreciate the recommendations, but you're killing me, man. You're killing me. I'd like to talk to you for a few minutes, if that's okay, about how I'd like you to refer work versus how you have been referring work. First, it's okay that you tell people that we're friends, but I prefer you say something like this. I'd like to refer you to the best estate planning lawyer I know in town. It may be hard to get in to see him, but since we're friends, occasionally I get to play golf with him. I can call ahead and see if I can get an appointment for you. I need to warn you, while he's not the most expensive in town, he's definitely not the cheapest, but everything that he will do will be totally worth it, and it'll be a fabulous investment for you and your family to, make your family protected and really have great peace of mind about your planning. Would it be okay if I go ahead and call him, because he doesn't take every single case that calls, he's very picky, and what I'd like to do is just go ahead and set this up for you now. It's a radically different introduction, isn't it? So if that prospect comes in, they're not looking for a deal, they know I'm the best in town, they know I'm exclusive, and I've got a really, really powerful referral in. So a lot of lawyers, when they're going to do the referral-based marketing, aren't really spending time to look at how they're getting referrals now from their existing referral sources. They're not paying attention to what the referral sources are saying. So the first thing I would do is take some time and audit maybe the last 10 cases or maybe the next 10 cases and go, how am I being introduced by my referral source? What are they saying about me? How are they saying it? Because it can make a significant difference to your conversion, can make a significant difference to your pricing, can make a significant difference to that client or that prospect becoming a client and then referring you future clients. So a lot of lawyers drive right by this. So that would be my first recommendation. 2, does your team know how to accept, track, nurture, and cultivate referrals? A lot of lawyers have trained their team to schedule prospects, but they really haven't trained them on how to cultivate, take a wonderful inbound referral, talk up the prospect, tell the prospect how lucky they are to be working with this lawyer, and to really nurture that lead. So that lead comes in excited about meeting with the lawyer. Most lawyers just train their staff to say, okay, somebody call, schedule, and throw them on my calendar. And there's no real thought process to making a great experience for the customer. So if you're looking at this, you're like, oh my God, my team has no clue how to do this. All they know how to do is schedule. It's not their fault. It's actually your fault because you're not training them. You haven't thought through your process. You haven't thought through what you're saying. So at the end of the day, you're responsible for that business experience for the customer. 3, do you have a thank you and acknowledgement process? If you get a referral from a prospect or a referral from a client, one of the most amazing things that lawyers don't do is say thank you. I used to refer work to a family law lawyer. As an estate planning attorney, I did 10 years of litigation and 10 years plus of estate planning elder law. And I referred a lot of work to a family law lawyer. And I had probably 3 different family law lawyers I think good work to. Well, one would call me personally and thank me for the referral. And every now and then would buy me something really cool and would keep me updated about what was going on with the other cases. The other 2, I would never hear back from. I wouldn't hear back from them. I would have no idea. And one of them was just terrible on returning phone calls to prospects. So, they got a prospect that referred in, it would be a week to 10 days before they got a return phone call from that family law lawyer. So that's 3 different really well-known family law lawyers that I would send work to. And only one of the 3 would take the time to even acknowledge the referral or say thank you. The other 2 just didn't. One treated my clients terribly because they ran a very poor practice. They were a very good lawyer. They're certified in this and certified in that, and a high yucky muck in this family law organization and a section chair in this family law thing at the bar. So they're they're good lawyers, but they ran a terrible practice. And they made me feel and make my clients feel like they were not appreciated. So over time, what do you think happened? Do you think I kept referring work to that lawyer that couldn't return phone calls to my prospects or to the people, my clients I referred to them? Of course not. It took about 12 to 24 months to realize this person, while they were a very good lawyer, was terrible at running their business. And they made me look bad. So I quit sending them work. Now, about 2 years after I quit sending them work, they called me one time and said, "Hey, Steve, you used to send me really great cases. Why do you quit sending me work?" And then I told them why. I said, "Well, you never return phone calls to my clients." They would call and say, "Hey, I called this lawyer. I haven't heard back from him in a week. What should I do?" You never acknowledged that I sent you the case. You never sent me work back. You didn't even send me a thank you card or thank you email to acknowledge the case. And then the lawyer had said this really amazing, arrogant thing to me. He said, "Well, but I'm the best." Well, of course you'd send it to me because I'm the best. And I'm like, "No, you're not. You're not the best. You're like one of maybe in the Tampa Bay area, maybe one of 100 good family law lawyers, but I would never consider you the best because you run your practice so poorly. You may be a terrific lawyer in front of the judge, but at the end of the day, you make my clients feel like crap. You don't try to take great care of them. You make my staff feel like crap because they're having to follow up with you." So really, if you think about it, and I'm just talking from a trench perspective, you have a good thank you and acknowledgement process. It doesn't have to be fabulous. You don't have to send me my favorite bottle of scotch or your referral source of their favorite bottle or whatever, but you do have to say thank you and I appreciate it and let them know what's going on. And then last but not least, do you have a follow-up process? It's amazing how many times I have firms call me and say, "I'm having a cash flow crisis." And I say, "Okay, great. What have we done with the prospects that have called your firm that you've met with that have said no, or I'm going to think about it for the past 90 days? Nothing. How many do we have? Well, we have 20. Great. Pick up the phone and call them. Or if you don't have the time to pick up the phone and call them, then have somebody on your team call them, because those are 10 people that have been thinking about it that we don't have a consistent follow-up process for. So these are 4 very simple. We could probably identify another 20 different areas that we could really look at this from, to look at your referrals. But this is probably a really basic one for 2018. Next one is, if you are going to do referral-based marketing, I would recommend that you look at your website from a prospect's perspective. I would say first and foremost, do you have a good photo of you? Do you have a friendly written bio? Most lawyers, when you read their bios, it's about how smart they are, but not how easy they are to work with. So when you look at prospects, most prospect studies show that the prospects are more intrigued by your photo and more intrigued about your bio, about, are you going to be easy to work with? Will you return their phone calls? Will you return their emails? Than who you clerked with 30 years ago, or what certifications you have, because most of them can't understand this. What do you think? And you've got to find the friend that will be the type of friend to tell you the truth and be honest with you and say, "Hey, yeah, your photo, that photo looks great, but it was a photo that you put up there in 1988. I think we need an updated photo. I think your website, while it's good for other lawyers to look like, is not client friendly or prospect friendly." So I would invite you to have somebody look at the website and say, "Okay, look, if a prospect gets referred my name and they go to my website, what will they think of my website?" And this also includes your Avvo profiles or any other profiles that you have with any of the other third-party vendors out there that, rank and rate lawyers. So, check those out too. Great. So that's number 1, number 2, number 3. Implement an effective self-development plan. Well, this one's very, very important to me. And a lot of lawyers just completely blow by this. If you are the most valuable asset at your firm, what's your plan to make you even better? And when I look at this, I really want you to look at it from a business skills perspective, not a legal skills perspective. If you've been doing this more than 10 years, you're really where you're going to grow your revenues on the business side, not on the legal side. So if you're looking at this, I'm really going to encourage you to look at your practice around what we consider the 4 foundations of practice growth. What are you going to do this year to improve your marketing skills? What are you going to do? What are you going to take a course on how to get better referrals? What are you going to do? 2, what are you going to do about improving your profitability, your pricing, how you run your practice from a financial perspective? 3, what are you going to do to improve your staffing? I mean, most lawyers, and I've done webinars and courses just on this topic. My partners, Sean McNallis and Mark Powers, have written a phenomenal book on, hiring slow and firing fast. A phenomenal book. But I think, this is probably the soft, weak underbelly for most lawyers, is that the reason they can't grow beyond a certain gross revenue perspective is because they're terrible at hiring, training, managing, and leading great people. So what are you going to do to improve your skills this year to be a better leader and manager of your team? And then time management. This is tricky because as your revenues increase, your time management skills need to adjust. So if you're doing 300 to 500,000 in production, you need one set of time management skills. If you're doing $500,000 to 1.5 million in production, you need to sit in different time management skills. If you're doing $3 to $5 million in production, you need a whole different set. If you're doing a $5 to $10 million firm, your time management skills need to be completely different than someone who's just started their practice. So as you grow, your skills to grow to the next level need to shift. And to grow to the next level, you need to shift the skills before you can grow. Most lawyers are like, well, when I get to that level, then I'll adjust my skills. It doesn't work that way. One of the workshops that I love to teach is the Double Your Revenue workshop. And one of the biggest things that I try and teach lawyers there is that capacity creates revenue. Capacity is what you have to build before you get the revenue. You don't get revenue, then hire capacity. So what I mean by that is if you're trying to grow to another level, you have to shift your skills now, because the skills that you have today have created the practice of today. If you want to grow a practice of tomorrow, you have to develop the skills of tomorrow. And so you have to work on time management skills constantly. You got to work on your focus management skills constantly. So what should be, if you say, okay, Steve, I'm in, that makes sense to me. What should your budget be? Should it be a percentage of gross or percentage of net? What should it include? Well, I got 2 thoughts for this. My first thought is, if you're listening to this webinar and you're not driving, just on a scrap piece of paper, write down the biggest hiring mistake for this year, for 2017, and write down what that cost you. Think about the biggest marketing mistake for 2017 and write down what that cost you. And what I would assert is that I would take the cost, the money that you made mistakes on, and take that money and invest it into improving your skills for 2018. Because you got the money, you're just spending it poorly. And most lawyers have the money. They're just wasting it on dumb business decisions. So if you really are trying to grow, take the money that you're wasting on dumb decisions and reinvest it into improving your business skills. If you're saying, no, I'm really kicking butt, Steve, you have no idea. I am just destroying it. I am the guru of practice management and marketing, but I would like to continue to improve my skills. Where do I go from there? Then I would go with a percentage of your gross or a percentage of your net. Now, this is interesting because a lot of lawyers get freaked when I start talking about this, because a percentage of your gross could be somewhere between 2% to 3% to 5%. So if you're doing $1 million, you're talking about $30,000 to $50,000 to reinvest into improving your skills as an owner. Not as a lawyer, not as a technician, but as an owner. If you look around at some of the really big players that are growing amazing companies, they take a percentage of their gross and reinvest it in research and development. They reinvest it back in the business. So for you, you have to ask yourself, if you truly are the most invaluable asset of your firm, what are you worth? Clearly, you got to be worth a percentage of something. What are you worth? So that's the way I'd look at this. I would say, well, I'm worth something. And next year, I'd really like to be a better practitioner than I am this year. And you're going to have to invest something. You're going to have to invest time. You're going to have to invest money. You're not going to get it by thinking about it or wanting it. You're going to have to do some form of behavioral change. You're going to have to put money somewhere and put time somewhere to try and improve those skills. So you have to ask yourself, what are you worth? What's your practice worth? What's your family worth? What's that worth to you? And that's really how you're going to back into that budget. But I would recommend that you come up with a number and say, okay, I'm investing this amount of money into my skills as an entrepreneur, into my skills as a business owner in 2018. That doesn't mean necessarily that you have to be working with us. You can take that money and go to a half a dozen different places to improve your skills. You know, there's so many different ways that you can improve your skills as a business owner. It's amazing. It just really is amazing. It's overwhelming when you think about it. Okay, great. So I've covered 3 recommendations to make 2018 a really great year for you. The question is, what's next for you? Now, if you've listened to any of the Atticus Advantage webinars in the past, you've been around us, you've probably heard us talk about what I consider the probably one of the most interesting elements of thinking about your practice, which is what I call the Atticus change formula. And if you're really looking at implementing sustainable change, you have to ask yourself, how am I going to implement this change so it lasts? To actually implement change so it lasts, you need 3 elements. First and foremost, you need a compelling reason to implement change. 2, you need accountability and follow-up. And 3, you need strategy and coaching. I've been studying this for 25 years of my life. I've watched so many lawyers become incredibly successful because they understand the formula and they implement well. I see so many lawyers become frustrated because they just feel like they're running on a treadmill as fast as they can, but they're not willing to make a change. They're not willing to be accountable. They're not willing to have a compelling reason to put something at risk. They're not willing to take strategy and coaching, but they're totally fine just running as fast as they can, doing the same thing over and over and over. That formula is a secret formula. I swear every time I try and help lawyers who are stuck, that's really where I go. What's the compelling reason? What's the accountability and follow-up? And what's the strategy and coaching? So for me, for today, what I'm going to do is have our company reach out and put our money where our mouth is and really give you a brief accountability structure. I'm going to have 2 of our client services advisors, 2 fantastic guys, Jeff Hines and Larry Wharton, call out to you. And they're really going to ask you a couple of questions. First, what is the most important strategic initiative that you're taking on in 2018? Like, of the 3 things Steve ranted about, what's the most important one to you? Or 2, where are you stuck and what can we do to help? You know, where are you stuck and what can you do to help? Now, they may, during the conversation, be able to give you some recommendations and some support. I'm going to tell them to recommend to you to take really a greater look at your practice management and your leadership skills. And the easiest way to do that, you know, while we took a peek at that during this webinar, is to really look at your practice from a diagnostic perspective. So really for us, the best action that you can take is go to a practice growth diagnostic with us. It's a small investment. With the first thing that we're going to focus on is your DISC. What's your DISC? And really for us, understanding your DISC, your D-I-S-C, your DISC, is a phenomenal way of learning to use your strengths and build a firm around your strengths. A lot of lawyers try and be well-rounded, which I think is a terrible mistake. If you are really, really strong in a particular area, let's say you're great at developing relationships, or you're brilliant in front of the judge or jury, then the entire practice needs to be reorganized around that ability that you have. Understanding what your DISC is and your team's DISC gives you the capability of, for the first time in your life, looking at what is my strength and how do I build a firm and a team around that strength. Now, the DISC is really, I don't have a lot of time to dive into it today, but I'm just going to say that's included in your practice growth diagnostic. The second is an assessment, and you're going to self-assess how you're doing the 4 foundations of practice growth. How are you doing on time management? How are you doing on your marketing? How are you doing on your team development, your staff? And how are you doing on cash flow and profitability? How are you doing? And how do you self-assess? And then you get an advisor growth analysis. The person that does the call with you, probably Denise, or probably Daniel will do the call with you, and they'll give you recommendations based on what we hear. Here's what our recommendations are to help you grow. And then at the end of the diagnostic, you're going to take a step towards the 3 most important actions. So what are the 3 most important actions? There's really 2 ways to do this. First, your investment. This is $295. Modest investment, includes your DISC analysis. We're the world's largest provider of DISC profiles. So we have an incredible insight in this. And it basically gives you the capability of just having a really amazing 360-degree view of your practice and how you think about your practice. There's 2 ways to do this. If Larry and Jeff call you and you take the time, which is my strong recommendation, to talk to them, you can have them register you for a diagnostic right on the phone, or you can just sign up for one of our websites at atticusadvantage.com and click the Let's Get Started button, and it will give you the ability to schedule and preset what works for you just through that website, what diagnostic will work for you. Now today, if you come through today's webinar, we're also going to give you a special offer. This is probably the best-selling book on time management in the legal industry. I've read 2 or 3 different sources citing that. This is tremendous work that Mark and Sean did on how to really be an incredible, they really built an incredible resource for lawyers on how to really decrease stress, manage interruptions, and restructure their time. So if you register for a diagnostic today, you do it through Larry or Jeff, they will ship this book out to you for no additional charge. I believe the book goes for about $89 on our website. So this is kind of a special deal if you're on the website, on the webinar today, and you go ahead and register. Now I'm going to end with 3 things. Number 1, I'm just going to encourage you not to waste time thinking about it. We are, as lawyers, intellectually gifted. We're in the upper 2% of the planet. We're incredible conceptual thinkers, and we will procrastinate better than anyone by just coming up with this one strategy. I want to think about it. I want to think about it. I want to think about it. I'm going to think about it. So I'm just going to recommend, take the call from Larry, take the call from Jeff, and talk to them about what's going on and take action. Because, you really, if you're frustrated with some part of your practice, if you don't make a change, you'll be really frustrated about that part of the practice next year. I promise. It's the only thing I can promise. 2, thank you for taking time with us today. I greatly appreciate the demands on your practice. I greatly appreciate the effort that you do for your clients. I greatly appreciate everything you do, from pro bono to committee work to leadership activities inside the Bar Association. But most importantly, I appreciate the really great work that you do for your clients. I know lawyers, we get rocks thrown at us all the time. And the truth is that we really are a key element to making the world work in a very civilized way. And while we get a lot of abuse for, some of it's well-deserved sometimes, while we get a lot of abuse, no one really appreciates the incredible work that you guys and gals do every day as my brothers and sisters of the bar, face-to-face trying to help people. And that's why many of us went into this business, was just to help people, figure out how we can make a difference in the world. So I want to thank you for the work you're doing there. If you've got any questions about today's webinar or any other questions that we can help you with, don't hesitate to email us at grow@atticusadvantage.com. And last but not least, if you have any questions about today's webinar, we have a few minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and take any questions that you have. And the easiest way of doing that is to either access the chat function, and Mike will unmute you so you can ask the question, or you can just post the question into the chat function of your GoToWebinar dashboard. Mike, did I say that correctly?
Almost. You can also just click the hand icon to indicate that you have a question or comment, and that's when I'll unmute you. So again, we'll hang out here for a few more moments to give folks a chance if they'd like to put together some questions. Somebody did just send in a question if we have a download of the slides, and we will be contacting you within a couple of business days to offer you a copy of the presentation, as well as a link to watch the recording as well. We do that with every Atticus Advantage webinar to give you an opportunity not only for yourself to review the material, but if you wanted to share it with someone. Steve, thank you so much for today's presentation. I think a lot of people on the line, it showed, they were very attentive. They were watching and listening very closely what you said. Again, if you have any questions, you can use the chat function on your dashboard, or you can use the hand icon to indicate you have a question and I can unmute you. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in right now. Thank you again, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And we'll be back again next month with our next webinar, 10 ways you can improve your initial consultation. So look for that in your inbox.
Thank you, everyone.